call the meeting to order. Roll call.
Freeholder Fantasia. Here. Freeholder Graham.
Here.
Freeholder Hertzberg will be absent. Freeholder Patillo. Here. Freeholder Director Yardley.
Here. We have, we're going to salute the flag. We'll have a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, adequate notice as defined by Section 3D of Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, has been made by regular mail, such notice being submitted on January 6, 2019, from the Administrative Center of the County of Sussex, located at 1 Spring Street, Newton, New Jersey, to the following: New Jersey Herald, New Jersey State Sunday Herald, Star Ledger, WSUS Radio, WNNJ Radio. It is also posted on the bulletin board maintained in the Administrative Center for public announcements and has been submitted to the Sussex County Clerk in compliance with said act.
Okay, thank you. Approval, can I have approval of the agenda? Need a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, voice vote?
Aye.
Opposed? Yeah. Just a note that we do have two appointment resolutions, K and N, that have been changed. You have the names on that? those-
I wrote them on yours.
Right. Okay. Yeah, on K, taking at Joshua Hertzberg and Herb Yardley, that's the members of the Board of Trustees. And on resolution N, appointment of freeholder Drew Graham as Sussex County representative and freeholder Josh Hertzberg as alternate to the Muscatine and River Council. Those are the only two changes.
Did you change the plan?
Yeah, that's in the regular. Okay. Proclamations in recognition of National Red Bear Day. Red Bear, Blue Red Day. Good. A little dyslexia.
Whereas the Sussex War and Chronic Disease Coalition celebrates the extraordinary progress in women's heart health and recognizes that more needs to be done in Sussex County to safeguard women's health for generations to come. And whereas heart disease is among the leading causes of death among women, and whereas many women do not know that heart disease is a woman's problem and they do not take it seriously, and whereas the risk factors for heart disease are smoking, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and high triglyceride levels, overweight, obesity, physical inactivity, metabolic syndrome, diabetes and prediabetes, a family history of early heart disease, age, history of preeclampsia, and whereas women can take action to protect their health, heart, and prevent heart disease by taking steps to prevent and control the risk factors for the disease. And whereas keeping women healthy and promoting awareness of women's health issues, including heart disease, is an important reasonability and depends on the actions of many organizations and groups in our community. And whereas women's health remains a priority for families, communities, and government, and our commitment to keeping women healthy is stronger than ever. And whereas the Heart Truth program and its red dress symbol are building awareness of women's heart disease risk and empowering them to reduce their risk and prevent heart disease. Therefore, Sussex County women need to take action to make heart healthy a priority for themselves and their families, become aware of the risk for heart disease, and take action to their heart health. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the Sussex County Board of Chosen Freeholders do hereby proclaim February 2019 as American Heart Month, and Friday, February 1st, 2019, National Wear Red Day in the county of Sussex, and encourages our citizens to support efforts to reduce heart disease and stroke in both women and men. National Wear Red Day by order of the Board of Chosen Freeholders, Herb Yardley, Freeholder Director, Sylvia Patillo, Deputy Director, Freeholders Dawn Fantasia, Joshua Hertzberg, and George Graham. The reason women have the #1 in heart disease issues is because women don't normally take care of themselves. Am I correct? Yeah, we're always worrying about somebody else, and we're always saying, well, I have a little cough, or I don't feel well, or I don't feel right, but we never take it seriously. And I'm just going to share a story. About 3 months ago, I was sitting home. My husband was asleep on the couch as usual, and I had a pain in my arm that wouldn't go away. And then it went down to my fingers, and my fingers went numb, and I was having trouble breathing. And I said to myself, I wonder if I'm having a heart attack, right? So I didn't want to wake up my husband. So I wrote him a note, and I said, I think I'm having a heart attack. I went to the hospital. I'll call you when I'm done. I thought that was reasonable, right, because I was in a rush. I went out, and I got in the car, and I'm driving. I thought to myself, this probably isn't good. So I called my sister in California, and I said, look, I think I'm having a heart attack. I'm on the way to the hospital. I'm telling you where I am, so if I stop talking, just call an ambulance. So as I'm going, I said, I'm turning the corner now. I'm on such and such road. I get to the hospital, and I'm sitting there, not long, maybe 10 minutes, and the woman came over to me. She called me up, and the first thing she said was, why are you here? And I said, well, I have this numbness in my arm, and now my fingers are, I can't breathe. Well, that was it. She didn't even take my insurance cards. Into the room I went, and you know, one of the doctors had said to me when I was there, women your age are at risk, and we're going to make sure that you're okay. And I will tell you, at Morristown Hospital, they went through every test. They kept me there for a couple of hours. Meanwhile, my poor husband woke up, didn't know what hospital I was at, because I never mentioned that. And when I called him, I calmed him down, and I was fine, to find out a couple of weeks later, when I went to the doctor, I had a pulled a muscle and tore a muscle in my arm. But the symptoms were similar. And I have a habit of, when people tell me they had a heart attack, to ask, what were the symptoms? And I will tell you, there's a variety. It's either the arm or the stomach or symptoms you wouldn't even think were symptoms. So the important issue here is knowing that women are at high risk. You really need to be in touch with your own body, and if you don't feel right, just go to the doctor or go to the hospital. I wouldn't do what I did, but I would take my husband and I would go to the hospital. But make sure you do something, because if you don't do something, it could end up being a tragedy. And if you do something and they find a problem, they actually can do something to help you nowadays. I mean, it's miraculous the way they handle things today. So I'm just asking, as we're here, and I know as our nurses are out giving educational programs and talking to people, and you work in the field, that you know that it's a situation. It's not just women, it's men can be just as stubborn. You know, they don't often like to go. Or you often hear, well, I don't want them to tell me bad news. Okay, but you know, the worst news is going to be you're going to drop dead from a heart attack. You know, let's go get the little bad news, and then we can handle that. So please, everybody here, take care of yourselves. There's ways that can be helped, and we want you to live a long and healthy life in Sussex County. Would you like to say anything?
Yes, hi, good evening. Maureen Cianci. I am a public health nurse from the Sussex County Division of Health, Office of Public Health Nursing. I also represent the Sussex Warren Chronic Disease Coalition, and I wish to thank the Freeholders for this important proclamation. You know what February is Heart Month. February 1st, Wear Red Day. Remember to wear red in support of women's heart health. Women can have different symptoms of a heart attack than what we see in men. There's information through public health nursing on the American Heart Association website. Be informed. Don't take chances with your health or the health of a loved one. And thank you.
One more.
Okay. Thank you for you, Jim. Appreciate it.
Hearing another presentation.
I'll be back in a minute.
And stories. George, you want to do that one?
Yes. I have to do this. So if I messed up, it's my only fault. Okay, Wayne, how come Sussex County has so many lakes? Come on, you're the historian. How come we have so many lakes?
That's very simple. You had a glacier that was here 15,000 years ago.
Tell.
And as the glacier came in, it brought in a lot of rock from upstate New York and Canada. And when it receded, it created what were called kettle holes. And the kettle holes were depressions in the earth. And as the glacier receded, it melted and filled up all these little pockets of water. And that was the beginning of our Great Lakes here.
Wayne, how come they built the Lackawanna Cutoff?
The Lackawanna Cutoff. This will take a few minutes. Thank you. As New York City and the greater New York metropolitan area expanded, there was an expansion of need for coal. Coal came from the anthracite fields in Pennsylvania, and the Pennsylvania Railroad and the Erie Lackawanna were hauling a lot of coal out of Pennsylvania, across New Jersey, and into New York. The problem was that because of the steep terrain to get through this area, and the multiple number of curves, and the steep grading, they were only able to take short trains in, and the Lackawanna decided it needed a new route. And so what they did in the early part of the 1900s is they sent out survey crews, and they basically looked at 5 different routes. They finally selected one, and then they had to go out and survey a 27-mile long stretch. And if you think about it, unlike the survey equipment that you guys have in the engineering department today, this is all hand material, where you had to go out, use dumpy level, long shot guns, and people to clear brush use axes and brush hooks. And they not only surveyed 27 miles of the center line, they also surveyed 300 feet on each side. So it's basically 2 football fields wide, 27 miles long. And what they did is they designed an entirely new route, which eliminated over 4 full turns of curvature, brought the grade to less than 1% over the entire length. And if they tried to eliminate all the tunnels, but down in Byram, they ran into a problem of rotted rock, so they had to have 1 tunnel. But basically allowed them to bring in greater loads of coal. They double-headed it with engines, and they were able to bring in coal trains that were more than 3 times the length of what they were able to do before. It also brought it in quicker, and they met their need. And so over a period of 4 years and 7 contractors working simultaneously, they built the Lackawanna Cutoff as we know it today. They moved 15 million cubic yards of material in terms of fill and cut. And when you stop and think about it, the little cars that they used only carried 3 yards each. But what was even more interesting is that the construction technique, they had towers that they had suspended cables from, and they suspended the rail over these open areas. They would back the train out on this track, fully loaded with all these little 3 cubic yard cars. And a man would stand out on each car and operate a lever that would actuate the top and dump it over. Can you imagine them trying to do that today? I don't think OSHA would approve of that.
Can I throw another one at you?
Try.
Thomas Edison. What did Thomas Edison and Sparta and Sussex County have to do with each other?
Okay, Edison was looking to develop a new way of getting iron ore out of the ground. And he sent men with explorers up here because he knew that there was a lot of iron in this region. And they used a magnetometer to find out the heaviest and largest load of iron ore that was available. It was up just slightly west, probably east of Ogdensburg in Sparta. And he acquired a big piece of land up there, spent $2 million of his own money to develop the site. And he invented a lot of the equipment that had to be manufactured specifically for that site in order to crush the hard rock that he was mining for this. And his process, once it was turned into a very fine dust, he used a way of separating the iron itself from the dust of the rock. And he used an electromagnet. So it would come down through a funnel, and the electromagnet would be here, and it would divert the stream of the iron particles out of the dust into one bin, and the dust into a different one. So he'd have the iron. He then would put a binding material with it, and they made these little hockey pucks, about this big, about that thick, weighed a couple pounds. And that's what was loaded into the iron car, the ore cars They were sent over Palmerton to be smelted down into iron that was then used in making pig iron or any other product that they needed. But he lasted up there only 10 years before they realized that they were losing their shirt on it. He had sold all of his stock in the electric company in New York in order to do this. But what happened is out in Minnesota, the Mesabi Range, they were able to strip iron ore out of the ground very quickly, very economically, and they had a processing plant very close by, and they were basically putting him out of business. So what he did is he got out of the business, he sold everything off, and he invested heavily into the concrete company down in Portland area, and he started manufacturing concrete. So that was his experiment. They say that it was a failure, but actually it wasn't. It proved that he could do hard rock mining here in the county, except it just proved not economical.
Yeah.
Everything about Sussex County is where we came from. Why are we here? Why are the roads here? Which roads are here? Ask Wayne. Wayne knows why the roads are here. Which roads took us where? Why they were put there? What Waterloo Village really meant? What the Mars Canal really meant? Wayne is a font of history, and he's chosen to very generously allow us to know what that history is in his articles, in the paper, in cups of coffee. I've had a few cups of coffee with him.
Just a few.
And sometimes it wasn't coffee. But what it means to Sussex County is understanding better how you got here. I gave a speech based on something you said a long time ago to the college when they had a graduation commencement, is that 100 years ago, the greatest export that we had out of Sussex County was ice. Things change. And if you don't know that, you think it didn't change. You know, it's always been this way. We always had our Netflix and our color TVs, but Wayne brings it into perspective, and sometimes the more details than you could ever dream possible. I'm going to put on glasses for this, because when I first met you, I didn't need the glasses.
Things change.
But things change. I'm very proud to read this to Wayne. Wayne is a good friend. He's a man of integrity, and he's a man that understands how it all works together. And if you haven't read his columns, his pieces in the Herald, which the other favorite author in the Herald is sitting here right now. I won't mention any names, but if you haven't read it, read it. Go back on it. It's definitely worth reading.
One other thing. Also, if you see the column and you can think of something that you want me to write about, we have in our collection over 17,000 historic views of Sussex County, and I use those to illustrate the book, probably the columns. So if you think of something that you want me to touch on, to look at and to think about, my email is in there. Just drop me a line, and if I can pull it off, I'll be happy to.
And what you said about the Lackawanna cutoff is absolutely right. They had these little trains that went out on cables and dropped it off, and there are photographic evidence that I've seen because of Wayne. I've cut some of the wherehouses out. Whereas the word historian is defined as an expert of history, especially that of a particular period, geographical region, or social phenomenon. Synonyms are chronicler, activist, archivist, and recorder. Well, you have your moment on those too. Wayne has lived this definition as Sussex County's first appointed historian since 2005. Mr. McCabe credits his late father Thomas with instilling him with a love for local history while growing up in Brooklyn, New York, in an apartment building neighboring Ebbets Field, and Ebbets Field is the home of the Dodgers.
That's right. I still support them.
And you still support them.
Brooklyn Dodgers.
Mr. McCabe later attained degrees in rural city regional planning from NYU and Rutgers, with a concentration in historic preservation, which we've also worked in historic preservation together. In 1974, Mr. McCabe made Newton, New Jersey his adopted hometown, and the County of Sussex his employer, while working as the county planning department as senior planner and principal planner, and later in 1980 became a proprietor of a consulting firm specializing in planning and historic preservation. In addition, Mr. McCabe taught 13 years at Drew University in the historic preservation program. His 12 books on Sussex County history to his credit, served as a consulting architectural historian to 21 municipal historic preservation commissions, and since 2014 continues to contribute articles about the history for the Sunday New Jersey Herald newspaper, while serving as architectural historian on staff at Waterloo Village. And that is a very great thing.
That is cool.
I just got to break in for a second. Waterloo Village was right on the edge of completely going out. After its heyday in the 60s, particularly 70s, 80s, 90s, it was just about to basically close down. Mr. McCabe, Sue Zellman, a few other people, which I got brought into the fold, were able to push hard to bring more activity and more life back into it. The state has now taken a much more active role, and Wayne is part of that active role. Thank you very much. Mr. McKay's appointment after then Governor Brendan Burns signed the Local Historians Enabling Act. Prior to his appointment, Mr. McCabe played a leading role in the county's 250 centennial anniversary in 2003. Sussex County is rich in historic landmarks. Mr. McCabe was appointed in 2007 as a non-voting ex officio member of the Sussex County Historic Marker Committee, and today the county has identified 32 historic locations and unveiled an interactive online map for those interested to learn more about these sites. Now therefore be it resolved that the Sussex County Board of Chosen Freeholders thank Wayne McCabe for his 16 years of volunteer service to the County of Sussex as historian and member of the 250 Celebration Committee, and for the labor of love Sussex County residents and visitors have benefited from his many contributions, programs, and accomplishments. By order of the Board of Chosen Freeholders, Herbert Yardley, Freeholder Director, Sylvia Patillo, Deputy Director, Dawn Fantasia, Josh Hertzberg, and George Graham, Freeholders. It is my distinct pleasure, and you are definitely, you deserve this. You deserve more of that. Thank you. Please.
I'm truly honored to receive this award and this proclamation tonight. When I was appointed as county's historian, I thought it was rather odd. First time they had a historian appointed, and they appointed a kid from Brooklyn. And my daughters, their lineage in this county dates back to 1752. And so that's rather interesting that they have that sort of a background in this area. I've enjoyed this responsibility very much. I believe that I've lived up to the statutory requirements set forth by the state in terms of being able to work with municipal historic societies that are having problems to help educate the population of our county. In fact, that was one of the things that the Freeholder Board charged me with specifically when I was appointed. And they said, your job is to educate people about the history of this county, and I think I've started to put a dent into it. And I'm also now finishing my 5th year as president of our county historical society. And one of the things that we're looking to do, because we just last year acquired 2 buildings across the street from our museum building, one of the things we're looking to do is develop a program that will reach out to every school district in this county and meeting with the 4th grade student teachers to work with them to develop a program that will help educate the 4th graders in our county about the history, the very broad history of each of their municipalities, because right now they're getting absolutely zero in terms of education on that. And I'm bound and determined to make sure that we can start turning that around so that people, as the children go through our college, our school system and go on to college, they'll at least know where they came from and not just some blank area where they happen to drop their hat at night or they go to school in the morning. So it's a challenge. It's an obsession, a magnificent one. But there's one thing I have to tell the board too. George mentioned that I am working now at Waterloo. I started off as a seasonal employee, and that meant that I could put in 14 to 15 hours a week. Because we've been able to receive grants for capital construction to the tune of $3.6 million, which will allow for the restoration of 3 buildings and a lot of the facilities there, and the restoration of the inclined planes on the walls, And also, ultimately, we're going to get money and design and complete construction, restoration of the Mule Bridge
Yes.
and the lock, so that we will have a working lock, and children coming there can see how a boat would pass through a lock on the system. Right now, we have between 14 and 15,000 students coming there every year. That's quite a load of buses coming in now. But they're there and getting educated about the Native Americans and about the history of the Canal Village, of Waterloo and Canal itself. But with the receipt of these grants, my responsibility has dramatically increased. I'm now going to be not only writing the historic structure reports and doing the site planning work and other engineering work in there, but I'm also going to be responsible for overseeing the construction work as well and doing all the inspections. Given that, my time right now has just been jumped up to quite a few more hours than I had before retreat, to the point of about 4 days a week. And my responsibility beyond that has increased also. So what I'd like to say to you tonight is I thank you very much for the proclamation. I used to say this, but I'd like to tender my resignation tonight from this job because I have the calling. I've enjoyed this work back at 10. I thank the past Freeholders for their support. Still here. Thank you very much. I'd like the minutes to reflect that my resignation will be thanked. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we have a presentation now for the fiscal year 2020 local concept development grant to the North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority, presented by County Engineer Bill Copeland.
Good evening. As Herbert said, I'm the county engineer. My name is Bill Cottonall. Later in your agenda, you're going to be asked to consider authorizing the application to a New Jersey Transportation Planning Authority competitive grant for a local concept development program. This is, I think, of specific interest in that what we proposed, or what we are asking, is that the application be authorized for submittal of a planning study, which is the local concept development process, for the eventual rehabilitation or replacement of Sussex County Bridge K03. K03 carries County Route 607, which is locally known as River Styx Road, over the River Styx section of Lake Opakon in the borough of Opakon. It is the largest bridge that the county owns and operates. It's a 12-span, 598-foot bridge. And because of the size and complexity of the bridge, makes it a significant project and undertaking for the county. Of the 440, 450 bridges we own, with this one being the largest, to give you an idea of the significance of the project that we're asking to move forward, on average, our normal bridge projects are about $8 million in magnitude for rehabilitation or replacement. Because of the size of this particular project, where the current estimate is a replacement of the bridge would be valued at between $17 and $22 billion. So annually, the department and the county, through our capital budgeting program, will manage concurrently about 20 to 22 projects, which have value of about $25 to $30 million. So as you can see, a 20 plus or minus $1 million bridge replacement is a significant increase or significant project within the scope of our normal county capital program. In preparation for the consideration of this, just wanted to go through, and I think you all have received a copy of the executive summary. Has some things that I've hit on, and some other things that I think are important to understand as we move forward. The bridge that's there right now replaced the prior bridge and was put in phases beginning in about 1949. So it dates back almost 70 years. Over the years, the county has invested in this bridge through a variety of rehabilitation programs or projects. The most recent of which, or the most significant of which, was recently undertaken in the early 2010-2011 timeframe. It included a rehabilitation, really a repair of the existing steel pile structure that supports the bridge. So the piles that go down through the lake, they're all steel. They were exposed to the waters and the elements and subject to section loss, so there was a project that was put in place to really fortify those and protect them. The intent was it was going to extend the service life of the bridge for probably another 20-25 years. Concurrent with that, at the same point in time, the county began to realize and monitor that the substructure of the bridge, or the deck, the railings, the sidewalks, the wearing surface, was all beginning to age and deteriorate as well. We had anticipated, because of the magnitude of this project, that the life cycle of this particular project is probably going to be between an 8 to 10 year project. So in other words, once we decide that we want to move forward this, to go through the planning, the preliminary engineering, the final engineering, the right-of-way acquisition and construction, it's going to require about a 10-year commitment on the part of the county and the county staff. Because of that, we're thinking pretty far out into the future on this particular project. And this grant application that we have access to through the Transportation Planning Authority is the mechanism that the county would use to apply for and secure federal funding that could augment the replacement or rehabilitation of the bridge. Probably one of the only grant opportunities that the county would have available for a rehabilitation or replacement of the bridge. The particular grant is put out on a 2-year cycle, so every other year TPA solicits for this. The reason that it's before you tonight is because we envision that in order to meet the 8 to 10 year rehabilitation replacement schedule, we need to be thinking and applying for this grant as soon as we can. I anticipate that if we were selected to receive the grant, and it is a competitive grant, so it's not a guarantee, that it would be known by about the end of the year. The first phase of this, the LCD, would take us through the planning phase of the grant. What it does is it will evaluate the various alternatives and opportunities for repair or rehabilitation of the bridge, including permitting, identifying of fatal flaws, consideration of any of the locally desired amenities that could be incorporated into the bridge, right-of-way impacts. Once that process is done, it would identify a preliminarily preferred alternative that would automatically advance into the remaining design phases and be included in the North Jersey Transportation Improvement Program, which is the federal funding program. The alternate to doing this type of a process would be the county initiating a rehabilitation project, which really has to be done, as I said, probably within the next 8 or so years. And it would require some investment on the part of the county from matching sources. The only real grant opportunities we would have would be state grants, most likely the local bridge funding program grants. Bridge would have to be determined eligible for them. It would probably take about two grant cycles, 2 years of grants, to allocate about $3, maybe $4 million towards the project, which would result in a county investment of in the neighborhood of another $3.5 to $4 million. This particular grant program, if it was determined that a replacement was warranted, and it was, if you said it was the $20 million, the lion's share of that would be eligible for funding through the federal TIP. So the county, we'd be responsible for some non-participatory items. We would be responsible for any legal costs that were associated with the review of any of the grant agreements, any right-of-way acquisition reviews, and then any staffing costs related to administration and management of the project. So probably in the neighborhood of $3.5 to $4 million worth of investment for a complete replacement. The inclusion of this in the county's workload would require, at some point, in some manner, staff specifically dedicated to this project. Anticipating somebody, working to administer through the preliminary and final engineering, the right-of-way, and the construction, because this would be a federally funded program, would require full-time construction inspection. Based on the size of the project, that can reasonably be anticipated to be additional, 2 to 3 people for the construction duration. I don't know if there's any questions. It's kind of a thumbnail. We've disseminated a lot of information related to it. I think it's a very good opportunity for the county. Certainly provides us access into the federal funding cycle. If we don't receive the grant in this cycle, I would anticipate that probably in the 2021-2022 budget, we will start allocating or earmarking funds to advance a rehabilitation project, in-house using other mechanisms, and then we would, of course, reapply for the grant.
Okay, so what we're applying for now is a 700.
What we're applying for right now is the first phase, which is the planning study. It is the first phase of the TPA Local Capital Project Delivery Program. This provides a planning study at the conclusion of the local concept development grant, which will identify the preliminarily preferred alternative. It is estimated right now that that is worth about $700,000, that planning study. The $700,000 is fully funded. If we get the grant, it will be fully funded by TPA. If we come up with a preliminary preferred alternative that moves forward as either a rehabilitation or a replacement of the bridge, those segments of the design, right-of-way acquisition, and construction are eligible for reimbursement by the TPA, but they would have to be funded and managed entirely by the county.
George, 6 years ago, when we first started talking about the bridges, and I was here, this bridge came up as being ready to enter this phase right at this point in time. So this is not out of the scope of where this bridge was anticipated, going back to that.
No, I agree with you, and while it doesn't show up in any of the capital budget documents, it does show up in a lot of the programming documents, indicating, like George had said, about 6 years ago, we had begun to identify that 6 years hence, today, we were going to need to consider how we were going to move this project forward so that we could, at minimum, rehabilitate the superstructure of the bridge, 6 to 8 years from now.
And this year, we know that the funds are available.
So this year, we know that TPA has solicited for the grants. TPA has allocated $3.5 million towards this grant solicitation. Any of the eligible subregions, the 13 northern counties, Jersey City, and Newark, are eligible to make submission under this solicitation. Normally, it is a very competitive program, and multiple subregions are expected to submit applications.
No, you shared a significant amount of information prior, was shared with us that I can use this past week. In addition, we received a fair amount of residents reaching out to discuss with us some of the issues that they've seen. These pictures, I think, pretty much tell a fairly comprehensive tale as to what's happening there. So I, thank you for preparing this information for us because it's very comprehensive.
Just wanted to say thank you for the time you spent with me when we met on the bridge. Got a lot of detailed information. I have 2 questions. Money. It's my understanding of what you said, that if we rehabilitate it, it's about $3.5 million, $4 million to rehabilitate But if we get the grant, it's $3.5 million, $4 million for a brand new bridge with their cost.
County cost.
County cost.
Yes, yes.
Either way. Okay.
Rehabilitation is currently estimated at about $7.5 million.
Okay.
Of that, we anticipate we will be getting somewhere between $3 and $4 million in grant funds, which would leave the balance, a county obligation. Through this grant, if the alternative comes out to be a full replacement valued at $17 to $22 million, the majority of what we will be responsible for would be the funding of the design professional, design management, and the construction oversight. So that and some of the non-participatory items which would be identified during the course of the project are estimated to be about $3.5 to $4 million. So the county investment or financial exposure right now is anticipated to be about the same, no matter which option or route we would go on.
Thank you.
I know in reading the information that you shared as well, I understand that there's exclusions to what the grant would actually pay for and what the county's responsibility would be. When you discussed having 2 or 3 individuals that were dedicated as employees for that, you said for the construction phase, how long is the span of that? I know the entire process is plus or minus 8 to 10 years, but what is the actual?
Well, what we're anticipating is that the LCD would probably be about a 24-month time frame. During that time, I anticipate for the majority of it, we will be able to rely on in-house staff, probably augmented on an as-needed basis with one of our on-call engineering consultants. As it graduates out of there and goes into preliminary engineering, I think what we would ultimately have to do is find some way to augment our staff with about probably 2 days per week of professional engineering oversight, whether it is done through, one of our on-call consultants, whether we find somebody to bring on during the duration of the project. I think as it goes into final design, we'll go from about a 2-day-a-week commitment probably to about a 3-day-a-week commitment. As we're about halfway through, it's probably going to be about a 2-year cycle for that as well. And as you get to the tail end of it, you're probably going to ramp up to closer to 4 days a week. Just knowing the complexity of the design contract, pulling everything together, community outreach, this particular project would have to go back down to DOT and TPA for authorization for advertising and then authorization for construction award. And then the right-of-way acquisition, I anticipate, could be, complex. The construction duration is probably 24 to 36 months, which would to some degree overlap with a construction closeout. So one of the things that's often overlooked from a construction or project administration perspective is once we cut a ribbon per se on a bridge like this, the project isn't over. We generally have about another 12 months administration closing the project out, particularly when there are federal funds involved in it, because to access the federal funds is a much more cumbersome process. What I would anticipate for that we would probably need one person 5 days a week, and then when you get into the actual construction, they would have to be supplemented with resident inspectors, so people are on site all the time. Probably 2 people, just given the size of this particular project, for between an 18 and 24-month period.
Okay, just one more question. Is this a complete out of service of 24 to 36 months, or is this a company out of service?
I wouldn't even venture a guess on that right now.
That was the third rail of the project.
Certainly, the preliminary engineering final design will try to evaluate and incorporate local impacts. So if there's a way that this can be phased, it will be evaluated at that time, and then we will minimize any closure. Most likely, just knowing the location of the bridge, the tie down to the bridge, it will be out of service for some period of time. I don't know that there's any way to avoid that.
I know that too, but
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be, certainly there'll be a lot of consideration given to construction phasing to keep the existing bridge in some sort of limited service for as long as possible, but at the end of the day, you've got to remove that bridge to put the new bridge in.
Right, and the interesting thing is that it says that the bridge was built around 1949, this particular span was. I have historical photos that go back to the turn of the century of all different types of wood bridges that were there, so that entire area has been built around that bridge.
Yes,
For
yes, and the bridge is
100
there
100 years
was
or more.
built around the bridge that it replaced until that bridge was taken out of service and the whole thing completed.
Right.
So it was.
I have another question. Is there a possibility if we go with a new bridge that it could be built next to that bridge, or does it have to go in that spot?
It will be evaluated as one of the alternatives during the planning study, but my expectation is it's gonna follow a very close alignment, just knowing the buildup on the adjacent shores.
Okay.
It's, you know, all four quadrants have some significant, you know, retail and commercial, residential development that has occurred on it, so I don't see a lot of opportunity to put a structure adjacent to this one and tie down the different location. I think we're gonna follow the same alignment.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, no public hearings, public session from the floor.
Comments are limited to 5 minutes and must only address issues regarding agenda items. Please state your name and municipality for the record and write same on the sign-in sheet. And please speak loud and clear.
Have a motion to open the floor for public comment.
So moved.
Sophie Patel.
Second.
Second, George Graham. Voice vote, all in favor?
Aye.
We're open to the public. Does anyone wish to address the board on any item that's on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, I have a motion to close the floor for public comment and return to regular business.
So moved. Second?
Dawn, second. Sylvia, first. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Okay, close to the public. Freeholder comments? Dawn?
Being that we are receiving our appointments as, liaisons this evening, I did the best I could over the past 2 weeks in an informal way. There's just a few things that I wanted to discuss. First, I did share some information as we discussed last meeting regarding the roles and responsibilities of what municipal liaisons for each municipality could look like. For the board, I sent a short bulleted list to Freeholder Director Yardley and to Mr. Poff. A couple of the ideas were that you would annually attend a minimum of one council or committee meeting of the municipality. If it conflicts in the date with our regularly scheduled meeting, one alternate meeting with the mayor, council representative, and the administrator or manager could be scheduled. That the liaison would establish and maintain contact with the municipality in order to promote county initiatives and then communicate back to the board municipal initiatives. And then also act as a point of contact to the municipality to address questions, concerns, or recommendations. Direct communication as indicated to the county administrator and or appropriate division. At the last meeting, I did share with Freeholder Director Yardley a draft of what the breakdown of towns could look like just as a starting point by way of regions. And I would like to determine for the next board meeting if there's support from the group for this, so we can, take action in establishing this at following our February meeting.
So, any questions at this point? You're asking for a kind of a workshop, real workshop on this?
Wouldn't be a bad idea, if that's
Okay.
the way you would like to go with it, that would be cool.
I think we can probably do that. We could either do that at a regular meeting or, Greg, how would we do that? Regular meeting, workshop? or-
It probably would be appropriate to have it listed on for discussion, similar to the presentation that was just made, that the Freeholder Board would have the opportunity to discuss it. We certainly can facilitate getting Freeholder Fantasia's outline of the roles and responsibilities out to the rest of the board in anticipation of discussion, but that probably would be the most efficient way as opposed to having to schedule a special meeting to discuss it.
So we'll put that on for our workshop for our next meeting. And give Greg all the information you have, and he'll share that with the board. Thank you.
Okay. Next, I did receive email communication from Mayor Harry Shortway requesting that I share with the board his request to be on the Solid Waste Advisory Council as a Vernon Township representative. Currently, we have openings for 5 members at large. However, Vernon does not have a member now named. So I did direct that up to you and to Mr. Poff. I believe our only appointed at-large member is Donald Plotner, but I don't believe that it's necessary for this board to act because there's a procedure in place that was shared with me about how he would go about naming himself and the people he would need to contact so that he could just be Vernon's representative. So I just asked that maybe Administrator Poff is in touch with him to perhaps guide him in the direction.
I would be happy to tell you that as efficient as our county engineer was in his presentation this evening, he has already communicated back to Mayor Shortway, and Mayor Shortway is now on the list of people to receive information concerning the Solid Waste Advisory Committee. Mr. Coppinall has done a very nice job welcoming Mayor Shortway and providing him with the necessary guidance. So,
It's like a 5-hour turnaround time. That's impressive.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just imagine what he could do with the River Styx Bridge.
Also to continue, I have a meeting this weekend with Doreen Edwards and John and Marty from the TIC Squad, again to gather more information for the possible collaboration between the college and this group. There's a few activities that I wanted to share by way of the county. The Sussex County Library System Winter Reading Raffle is going to be run on February 1st to the 28th. Adults age 18 and up can earn a raffle ticket for each book they read or they listen to at any of the library branches, and each branch will award a $50 Amazon gift card to the winners. And the English teacher in me could not help but share that with everybody tonight, so I hope you get your read on in February. Also, photography seems to be a hot thing. The Sussex County Arts and Heritage Council is having their annual juried photography exhibit. The entries have to be submitted. You can just visit the county website. You have to submit your entries by January 25th, and there's a nice reception that actually happens in the spring. Also, January 25th is also the deadline to submit any photos that you may have of the county. I know I belong to some groups, some social media groups that share a lot of photos that residents have captured across the county. If you would like to have your photos considered to be shared in any county communication, you can submit those as well. And the county is looking to solicit photos to send out. And the deadline for that is the 25th as well. Photos can be of any age. They have to be taken somewhere in Sussex County. And we would be using them in communication pieces and in our newsletter. That's what I have. Thank you.
Yeah, I would like to just start. Bill, I'd like to thank you for that presentation. You made it very easy to understand. And as you mentioned, this was the year that we had all spoken about in addressing our concerns and trying to work something for that bridge, which is in great disrepair at this point. So we really appreciate all that you do and have done in the past for that bridge. I'd like to just thank Wayne McCabe. I'm sorry that he left. He certainly did a wonderful job as our historian. But I remember when I used to teach in Andover, we had certain educational trips, and every year we would go to Waterloo Village. And I have to say that that was one of the favorite trips. I don't know if you ever took students there. They loved to go. It was so educational and so well done, and I'm so glad that it's being restored. The other thing is I had the opportunity this year to attend the graveyard tour. I don't know if anyone here has ever gone to the graveyard tour. The Historical Society holds it over at the cemetery, and different people dress up in costume of the period of time that the person in the grave was born, and they act in character. and they speak about themselves and the history and the family, and it's so enlightening, and especially with the Civil War and the different aspects that this county played in the history. And this year they were doing it in the rain, and they never fell out of character, even though it was raining on everyone. They did a wonderful job, a wonderful demonstration and educational tour. If you ever have the opportunity to go, I believe they do it every year. It's interesting to attend. I learned a lot. For our veteran service, we have a veteran service officer that comes to the Franklin Armory on Thursdays and alternate Fridays. And now we have him coming to the Sussex County Administrative Center right here. And he will be here on the second floor every second Wednesday of every month from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. This is an increase in service to our veterans. I want to thank Carol that helped to get this in place. And if anyone needs to really have the help to receive the proper benefits, it's our veterans. So it's really great that we can have them for another day. Thank you for all your work. I also want to say that this year we had the annual point-in-time count of the homeless. It was conducted in Sussex County today, and 3 volunteer teams visited 17 locations throughout the county and 2 community kitchens, seeking out homeless residents in an attempt to document their specific needs. We don't have those numbers, but they made the count today, and really what it's about is trying to find out what their needs are and making sure we have the resources, if not within the county, but with partnerships that we have to meet those needs. So we'll find those counts out soon. The other thing is the Sussex County Office of Public Health and Nursing will hold the following clinics at the Division of Health Office of Public Services. So you'll have in your walk-in flu clinics and other clinics. You can check on their website to find out what's being offered. But the Division of Health is also busy with the communicable disease investigations. And from December 6th through January 18th, there were 101 reportable diseases investigated in Sussex County. And among those were the following. For Lyme disease, there were 62. For bacterial diseases, there were 7. For hepatitis C, there were 5. For chronic hepatitis C, 11. H1N1, which is the flu, there were 29. Influenza type A, there were 31. Influenza type B, there were 3. For strep throat, 3. And for chickenpox, 2. Lyme disease remains the most investigated disease. And the H1N1 flu and influenza type A were the most frequently reported communicable diseases during this time. And the statistical report by municipality with the highest number of reported diseases from December 6th to January 18th were the following. Paccon Borough was 16, Vernon Township 12, Wantage Township and Newtontown 10, Hardison Township 9, Sparta 7, Franklin was 6, and all others reported 4 or less. From September 1st through January 16, there were 43 domestic or wild bite exposure reports from animals that required follow-up investigations. The animals involved were dogs, there were 34, cats 4, bats 2, a fox 1, and a mouse 1, and 1 under.
Your Deb.
I want to start off by thanking our plow crew. I just have one question. I did just have, how many trucks do we have up and running? You know, 67 is what, 67 is what we
I
want.
believe we had 67.
67 trucks.
The
Now
energy storm
that's,
was 67, which is very good.
that's a tribute not just to our drivers, that's certainly a tribute to our motor pool, keeping things running, our engineers and making sure that everything was planned and plotted out right. It was an unusual storm. We were expecting all kinds of snow. We got all sides of ice. So it was complicated. But I want to thank you. I want to thank emergency management for giving us briefings all the way along to let us know what was going on. It's not just, we don't just rely on a service, we rely on the ground reports. And the sheriff is the emergency management coordinator. I want to thank him and his crew for everything he did. There is a change of liaisons. For the past several years, I've been the Health and Human Services liaison. it's been through a time of change. And I want to thank Ms. Norbert, Mr. McDonald, for the contributions that you've made to make it a significant improvements in something that had gone through a period of turmoil. I was told by a former freeholder once, stay away from Health and Human Services because it's not popular with the people. But it is the people. It's exactly it is the people. I also found that the employees that work for Health and Human Services, not putting down any other department, but they put into it with their hearts. Your engineers put in with their hearts too. I want to applaud what you do. Your staff, Carol, is magnificent. The only time I've seen some heated arguments is how to do it better. I've been fortunate to be able to spend time in every aspect of it. And what do we see for it? We see reports that are very, very significant. What we read here is really a synopsis of what we know, but usually Thor puts these up. We are have a showing at every single meeting from the department. We have a call-in session for each one of our municipalities. Our municipalities are encouraged to call in once a month. We have a call-in, and it's a rotating topic. Our outreach has gotten significantly better, and it's also with the health department. And of course, that also includes the transit, what you do. Thank you very much. I want us to talk just a moment on this point in time, homeless. And there's a word that Sylvia used a moment ago, and she said it's numbers. It's not numbers, it's people. It's people. And I know that we look past the homeless. It might be 20-something in this county, it might be 40-something in Morris County, it might be 60-something in Essex County. There, but for the grace of God, go us. I know somebody who is just taken off the streets. I know the struggle that goes way beyond what you think it is. It might be because somebody had trouble with some sort of a substance, but maybe it isn't. Maybe it's because of an illness. Maybe it's because of an illness of a spouse. Maybe it's because they lost their house, their home, and their families. But it also is finding yourself on the street with no ID. How do you get an ID? Think about it. Everybody in this room has ID. And since 9/11, you can't function without an ID. You can't get onto a train. You can't get onto a plane. You can't apply for anything. I guess the only thing you can do really is vote without an ID. That's it. There's nothing. This isn't and the state of New Jersey has this program where you can get your ID for nothing, except for the fact you need an ID to get your ID. You can't get your birth certificate. You can't get a driver's license. You need 2 forms of ID that proves that you get a utility bill at your house that you don't have anymore. This is ridiculous. And I have some influence. I know people, and I can't get this person ID. This is wrong. This is absolutely wrong. We look at point in time as numbers. It's not numbers. They're people. They're human beings. They are people who used to be your aunt, used to be your uncle, used to be your nephew, and now they just drifted off into the distance. I know that everybody in this room has a heart. And I know as I go out to hundreds of other people, they have hearts. But we have to really stand up and say, homeless is a real issue. And it can happen very easily. Most of what we talk about with the CLEAR program, most of the people that I've met that have opiate addiction started off with a dental procedure. Well, the dental procedure turns into opiate addiction, turns into I can't work anymore, turns into homeless. So I know I'm pontificating, but that's what I'm known to be doing, and that's what I do. I just want you all to go home tonight and realize that there are people out there that are not just in the cold, maybe they're shivering in somebody's basement or sitting on somebody's couch. They are homeless, and they're real people. Before I get off, I want to say one more thing about Wayne McCabe. Wayne McCabe was very, very significant in bringing Waterloo Village back. It really was. It was gone.
Sue Zellman, I think, was probably the leading force in making sure that Wayne and Jimmy Oskovich from Byram, and Marie Raffay, and a number of other people. And I remember when she called me on the phone and she said, "You're doing this?" And I said, "Okay, I guess I'm doing it." But it was Wayne McCabe that really brought it in, because he knew everything, every step of the way. He talked about a mule bridge. Doesn't sound like much, but it's a bridge that takes us to Morris County. Once you do that, you bring in funding from 2 different counties. So I want to thank Wayne for his dedicated service, his passionate service, and I want to advocate that he please do not stop writing his columns. So thank you.
Hit some cold weather, some warm weather, some rain, some ice. I guess those trucks are going to be maybe busy, but leave that in your hands, and we'll wait for people to call and say, what are the white stripes in the road, and why are we wasting money? But I think you do a great job. The roads were clear with this last snowfall. JCP&L had their mayor calls, and I listened in on those calls, and they were very informative, and they kept a crew up here, several crews up here to cover this emergency. Wanted just to say thank you for getting the veteran services here. I know that has taken at least a year probably just to get down here or more. And I don't think people realize that in order to get that person here to work with our veterans, you have to go through the state. So that's good. I'm glad to hear that. And that will, do we have a date when he will be here?
February 13th will be his first day.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that. I really am. I want to say, good presentation. I like that. And if there's anything that the freeholders would like to see on the monthly presentation that we're going to have, we're going to have, if they would just let Greg know. I know that I would like to see something in the spring with mosquitoes, so we know what we can look forward to. There is a problem that we have in the county, and I'm going to leave it to the mosquito people to get specific on it, but a lot of the property that we have to treat are federal land, and the county gets no money at all from the federal government. As a matter of fact, they would probably like us to not treat it all. I think that the board should look at sending a resolution to Gottheimer's office asking if he can put in a request to get us some funding to cover the costs so we can do a better job, because we do have limited funds here. So I would ask that when that presentation comes up that we look at doing something. As the director, I would just let everybody know it's been a busy couple of weeks, just coming in the building, getting orientated with that, and talking to the various staffs. I want to thank our engineer for spending a lot of time with me on the bridge. I think you did a great job, and you were able to bring it down to terms everybody, I think, could understand. So I appreciate that. Okay, that's the end of the report. Anything else? So let's move on to our approval of the consent agenda. Can I have a motion for approval?
Second?
Okay, approved. First motion by Sylvia, seconded by Dawn Temptation. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, roll call vote.
Freeholder Fantasia?
Yes.
Freeholder Graham?
Yes.
Freeholder Patillo?
Yes.
Freeholder Director Yardley?
Yes. Okay. Approval of the minutes. We have a motion to approve the regular minutes of December 19, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
We'll take them separately or just? I abstain from one, so.
Yes, she has
Take
to
it separately.
abstain. So we'll do that one separately and do the rest together, all right? So, voice vote on December 19, 2018. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I abstain.
Just one abstention. A motion to approve the minutes for the reorg meeting January 3rd, 2019. The regular minutes January 9th, 2019. A motion to approve, okay, just that.
Just
and-
those two?
Just those two.
So,
make a
can-
motion.
all right, I'm gonna have to, because I can vote on the January 3rd, but I have to abstain on January
Well,
9th.
well, okay.
You can take them separate.
We'll do them separate.
Thank you.
Let's do-
to move January 3rd minutes.
Do I have a second? I'll second. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion to approve minutes of January 9th.
I'll move the minutes of January 9th.
Second. You second?
Yes.
Okay. One seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
And I abstain now.
One abstention. Motion to approve December 19 executive session minutes.
So, second.
George has it.
Okay, motion.
Make the motion, I'll second it.
Second, okay. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I abstain.
One abstention. I should ask abstentions and, executive session, January 9th, minutes.
So moved.
Second. I'll second it. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Got it.
Okay, appointments and the resignations. Okay, we've already corrected, made the corrections between school estimates and Westconnect and River. All right, resolution A. Can we do these all at one time? Okay. So I'm going to ask for a motion to approve resolution A. Resolution B.
I'll motion.
Do I have a second?
Wait a minute, just on something. You were gonna change this, you're gonna make me the alternate. and
You did.
It doesn't say that.
I made that announcement.
Oh, you did,
in the
okay.
beginning.
Okay, I'm sorry. So there was a motion and a second.
Okay. In the beginning. Roll call vote?
I'm sorry, I only heard the motion
The motion is to approve resolutions A
through P.
through, yeah.
Freeholder
through P.
grant. I'm sorry, who was the second? Oh. And then a voice vote,
Voice vote.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Same none?
Abstentions?
Okay, number 13. So, these two, okay, taking the Greg. You want to do resolution A?
Yes, they would both be taken separately. Resolution 13A is authorize the submission of the application under the North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority's fiscal year 2020 local capital project delivery program concept development phase study for replacement of Sussex County Bridge K03 in the borough of Hopatcong, which is consistent with what the county engineer, Bill Hoppenall's presentation was to the board earlier this evening.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Freeholder Fantasia?
Yes.
Freeholder Graham?
Yes.
Freeholder Patillo? Freeholder Director Yardley?
Yes. Supporting Assembly Bill?
I'll make a motion.
This one is the supporting the junior firefighters and auxiliaries to perform certain fires duties. Okay. I have George.
Motion.
I'll second.
Second by Sylvia. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, word contracts, from bids, I don't see anything there. Financial, payment of the bills?
Motion to pay the bills.
Second, okay. Just seconded it, well, okay. Sylvia seconded, all in favor?
Here's one, just before you do this, payment of bills January 23rd, 2018.
Oh, I apologize.
Something
That changed
quirky about that.
Yeah. Just,
Well, even, not even, yeah. Thank you. That's all.
okay.
Freeholder Fantasia?
Yes.
Freeholder Graham.
Yes.
Freeholder Cotillo.
Yes.
Freeholder Director Lavelle.
Yes. Okay. Personnel agenda items, administrators report.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Director. We're in the process of finalizing the operating and capital budget for the year. We will have a final review with the budget and capital project subcommittees within the next few weeks, with a public works session to be scheduled following. I'll be attending the New Jersey Association of Counties reorganization this Friday at the State House in Trenton, along with Freeholder Director Yardley. It should be noted that you all would have received correspondence from the New Jersey Association of Counties that it was to file this afternoon a complaint with the New Jersey Council on Local Mandates on the election by mail legislation that was implemented by the legislature last year as an unconstitutional and unfunded mandate. I should note that the cost to the county last year was approximately $30,000 in additional supplies, postage, and staff. It's anticipated that it will be approximately the same amount, between $29,000 and $30,000, that the county will have to fund as a result of this legislation. The clerk of the board's office has provided the board with a form of resolution in support of NJAC's action that the board could consider at its next regularly scheduled meeting of February 13th. In addition, I would also like to thank the sheriff and our deputy emergency management coordinators for their efforts during the partial activation of the county's emergency operations center during the inclement weather that we've had this past weekend. And also recognize the Division of Roads, who, as always, does an exemplary job in keeping the county roads free and clear of snow and ice. Thank you.
Thank you. County Council?
Nothing for tonight, thank you.
Okay, unfinished business? None. New business from anyone? Public session from the floor? Open it up to the floor.
Second.
We are now, all in favor?
Aye.
Right. Opposed? All ayes have it.
Ms. Stephen, should I make the statement?
Sure.
Everyone is asked to keep their comments to 5 minutes or less. Please state your name and municipality for the record. Write same on the sign-in sheet, and please speak loud and clear.
Okay, anyone wish to address the Freeholders? All right, seeing none, we're going to have to ask for a motion to close it to the public.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the ayes have it. Reminders are noted on tonight's agenda and posted on the county website. Open space meeting on January 24th. February 7th, Senior Services Advisory Village Cafe in Knowles Heights. And February 13th at 7 p.m. regular freeholder meeting. We have a resolution now to go into executive session, closed session.
Whereas the subject matters about to be discussed may be excluded from the public portion of the meeting by resolution of the Board of Chosen Freeholders as an exception to the Open Public Meetings Act pursuant to NJSA 10:4-12 and whereas it appears necessary for the Board of Chosen Freeholders to discuss such matters in executive session, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Chosen Freeholders of the County of Sussex, in accordance with the provisions of NJSA 10:4-12 and NJSA 10:4-13, that the Board at this time enter into an executive session from which the public shall be excluded, and be it further resolved that the general nature of the subjects to be discussed relate to the following items authorized by NJSA 10:4-12 and as designated below. I'm sorry, I put this in a terrible spot. 7, matters relating to litigation, negotiations, and attorney-client privileges, CWA 1032, CWA 1032 non-supervisory and supervisory, CWA social services, and potential litigation. Be it further resolved that the deliberations conducted in closed session may be disclosed to the public upon the termination of the Sussex County Board of Chosen Freeholders, or provided by law that the public interest will no longer be served by such confidentiality. And be it further resolved that upon completion of the business for which the board has entered into the executive session, the board shall reconvene and resume its meeting open to the public. Be it further resolved that the board expects not to take formal action after returning from executive session, except to adjourn the regular meeting.
Motion to adopt the executive session resolution and enter into executive session. Voice vote? Okay.
Aye.
Okay. We're now going into